Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Signed, sealed, remembered, Honeymoon at Circle G. Hello, Gunn. Hello, Keith. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. We know that Elvis has left Palm Springs and he's gone back to Memphis, Tennessee, where he stayed one night at his beloved Graceland. And then he moved on to the Circle G so that they could complete their honeymoon, because we just saw him get married a few days before. Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. But we're going to get started with a song. And this song is about what he's trying to accomplish here on the Circle G. It's his heart's desire.
His time came too early, the curtain fell too fast. Before he was ready, before we could grasp the man behind the myth, the ache behind the fame. He wanted something simple, not fortune, not acclaim. Six is three, the threats came down like rain. He spoke of love, not fear, through the shadow and the strain. I wanna live to be old, he said with quiet grace, to remember her love and see our children's face. He didn't ask for gold, didn't dream of a throne. He wanted a family, a place to call home, to be a good man with a heart that could rest, to know he was loved and he'd given it his best. No mansion in the sky, no diamond parade, just the warmth of her hand and the life they made. A whisper of laughter, a child's sleepy sigh, that was the dream he carried inside. He didn't ask for gold, didn't dream of a throne. He wanted a family, a place to call home, to be a good man with a heart that could rest, to know he was loved and he'd given his best.
Thank you for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. Hi, Luann. Thank you so much for coming. Happy coffee. And thank you for everyone that is here with us, because today we have returned to the Circle G Elvis has left Palm Springs, and he and Priscilla spent a night in the mansion that is Graceland. And then they moved on over to the Circle G, according to what we know so far, from what we've been told. And here's where they came from. Out here in California. And this is where they're headed. Now, on the Circle G, there is a one-bedroom house, and it's long been known as the Honeymoon Cottage. But it's doubtful that Elvis and Priscilla stayed there. They did stay there the first night, before Elvis even owned the property, when he just borrowed it from the current owner, who said, stay a couple nights, stay as long as you want, use what is mine is yours, and then let me know if you still want to buy it. Maybe it's just something you want to do for a weekend. But after that first night, Elvis said he'd never slept so well in his life. And then they started ordering these trailers not long afterwards, because from what we could tell, this one was ordered in March of 1967. And I think that proof comes with this trailer, which was eventually put up at auction. But this was the trailer that Elvis bought for himself. Now, some people said that it was bought for Alan Fortas and his wife. But we saw other information that Elvis custom ordered this for himself. That's the way Billy Smith tells it. Billy Smith, Elvis's cousin. Now, Billy says that the very first trailer that was ordered, well, that was Billy Smith's trailer. Billy Smith also says that the only trailer that was not in Elvis's name, that was anywhere on the property, was his trailer. That Elvis bought Billy's trailer and immediately signed it over to Billy, and that they had all the paperwork done in Billy's name. Now, we've heard Jerry Schilling say he had to start making payments on his trailer because it had been bought in his name. So we're not quite sure where all the truth lies in that. We do know that after the end of the Circle G, several of these trailers make their way back to Graceland. So Elvis must have owned those. And in this particular trailer, Donna Presley and her father and mother, Earl and Nash Pritchett, and Donna's sister, they all lived in this trailer on the Graceland property. But originally Elvis bought this one for himself. And this is where they came back to. And Keith says that there was a clip of Lamar talking about Priscilla hanging out with Elvis at his base house in Germany. And he went on to say that if anyone knew that Elvis was hanging with a 14-year-old girl, huge trouble. Well, his base house, he just means the house that Elvis was renting, that Lamar was also living in. And she came to a party there, and then she did come several nights after that, and Lamar himself drove. It was a long distance that she lived away from Elvis. She didn't live next to Elvis. It was like 45 minutes or an hour or something like that to drive. And Lamar would often drive her and go pick her up, and then drive her back and then come back. And Colleen saying, how many trailers went to Graceland? Well, I know that Nash and her family lived in one, which would be this one. And I know that Patsy Gamble and her family lived in another one. So that would be 2. I know that Billy and Joe lived in one that's not the same one that was on the Circle G. So that's 3. I know there was one that Nurse Tish lived in, but I don't think it was, somebody else had lived in it before, but I don't remember who. I don't think it was the Pritchett's or the Gambles. I think it was somebody else. And that then the nurse moved into this, but I may have that wrong. Can't swear to that one. But at least 3, and I'm thinking maybe 5. And Gunn says, why move them to Graceland? Well, towards the end of this year, Elvis determines that he's not coming back to the Circle G. And it's time to move on. And so they liquidate everything on it. And we're coming up to that time. And we're going to learn all the details about it. Elvis does end up owning the property for far longer than that. But by then, they'd moved all the trailers and they'd moved them to behind Graceland. And I think that the dreams that Elvis had for the family here on the ranch, I think he got to a point where he began to fulfill those at Graceland itself. Plus, he bought another really large house that cost a lot of money, basically as much money as the ranch cost. But it wasn't really a money issue because, again, he still owned the ranch for a long time. So it's not like he turned the money from the ranch into something else. So in the end, I think we're going to end up coming to a conclusion that Elvis determined that whatever he was seeking on the ranch, it was either not to be found there or he found it. And it was time to move on. I don't know exactly yet because we haven't quite got there, but that's the way I feel that it's coming. But you may feel a different way. And so, of course, everybody's opinion's welcome here. Feel free to throw it into the chat or put it in the comments below. And make sure that you give us a like, because each and every like really does help and add up here on the YouTube algorithm. Be sure that you're subscribed. Be sure that you have the notifications turned on. Can't guarantee the notifications always work, but you can turn them on, you can click on that bell, and you can hit the all. And that's the very best chance to get every notification. And YouTube does track every time that you've turned all notifications on for the creator to say, not you specifically, but it just tracks like a little number that says, this is how many people turned this on this time around. So it's important to YouTube. Whether they tell you or not. And make sure that you tell everybody you love that loves Elvis Presley to be sure to join us here at Hillbilly Cat History. And Luann says this is a very long trailer. It's pretty good size. And Keith says, Lamar is my favorite mafia storyteller. And that's what he is. He tells a lot of stories. They're good stories, though. He's very entertaining. And Gunn asks if Keith trusts Lamar, and Keith says that he does. I would always suggest that Lamar is exaggerating in most cases. Doesn't mean it's not true. Just mean that Lamar sometimes pushes that envelope a little far. But back to this house trailer. Elvis and Priscilla preferred to stay here than in the more secluded brick farmhouse. Now, where was this trailer on the property? I don't really know. I've heard that it was up near the cottage. And I did hear Billy Smith say that the trailer he lived in, the one that was in his name, the one that we've heard described by others as looking like a cabin, that trailer was right behind a barn as you drove into the property. What he said was you drove in and the cottage was on one side, and as you drove down the road a little bit, there was a barn or a shed or something there, something that came with the property, and that they tucked his trailer in right behind there. And then eventually, when Elvis had all the sanitation and everything hooked up, I don't know if you guys remember, or if you were with us, you may have missed this episode, but I threw up a map of the Circle G, and I showed you where I thought the trailers had been. There was like a big square, and you could see what looked like concrete pads for trailers. And some of them were in a row, and some of them were at diagonals, and there was a few of them, though. And my theory was you'd put them all here, which was by the back gate, which is kind of where they described they were. And you'd be able to do all the sanitation and the electric and the phones a lot easier. Because they would all run off of a central trunk, just like they do at a real trailer park. Well, Billy says that they eventually moved his trailer down to exactly where I described. And that's where they put those. So that really was where those trailers were, which I found to be kind of fascinating. And Colleen says Joe said their trailer at Graceland was a double wide and it had 3 bedrooms. So that's a good sized trailer. Yeah, that is a good sized trailer. Now this one, we can see a different view of it. This is like you're getting ready to walk up on the steps and go into the trailer. Priscilla says, we divided our time between Graceland and the ranch, where Elvis and I had taken up residence in a large 3-bedroom trailer. Well, Colleen, I think that 3-bedroom trailer that Joe and Billy were living in is basically the same size that this trailer is. Because this is basically as big as they get. Large 3-bedroom trailer at that point in time. Now they get bigger later, but this is about it at that point in time. And Priscilla says it was typical of Elvis to choose the trailer over the quaint little house. He had never lived in a trailer before, and it intrigued him. The place was completely furnished, including a washer, a dryer, and a modern kitchen. It turned out to be very romantic. And Keith says that Lamar adds spice on his stories. Well, that's a good way to put it, Keith. He certainly adds the spice. And this is if you've walked into the trailer. You could turn to your right and enter the living room. And you can see they've got a dividing wall, but it's got a big cutout there. And if you turn to your left, you would see the kitchen. I think that's the back door by the kitchen. I don't think that's the front door you come in. I could be turned around, but I think that's the back door. Joe Esposito says Elvis was so tickled by the notion of living in a trailer on his honeymoon that he asked Alan to move into the main house. Lisa was conceived in that trailer. Now, I think Joe doesn't quite know what he's talking about here. I think Elvis ordered this trailer for himself. And I think we'll see that as we walk through it. So maybe Alan stayed here for a while, keep everything fresh and running. I mean, you don't want the house just to sit empty. That's the worst thing that can happen to a house. So maybe you had him here while you were off making clam bake, but I don't think the intention was ever that Alan and his wife would stay in this house. But I don't know. I wasn't there. Jerry Schilling says, maybe it was because the buying was all out of the way. Maybe it was because, having frightened himself with his fall, Elvis had gotten himself healthy again. And Jerry's referring to the concussion that Elvis received when he fell on March 9th, early in the morning. According to Priscilla, when he got up, probably to get ready to go to work, start the first day of filming on Clambake. Jerry says maybe the Colonel's coming down hard had made him more determined to take back life on his own terms. Now, the Colonel coming down hard that Jerry refers to, that was mostly on the guys. I'm not sure that he came down hard on Elvis. Maybe he did. But what we heard was he came down hard on the guys, and that Jerry was one of them, and that Jerry had started to pack his bags to leave, and Elvis came and told him, no, it's not you, man. You're not the one that's going to end up going. Jerry says, but whatever it was, when we all went back to the ranch again, it was really a magical time. Maybe it was because he was just so much in love with Priscilla. Elvis was calm and contented. Priscilla was thrilled to be away from Graceland or the big LA houses. She was happy to be in a simple place where she could cook breakfast for Elvis and make his coffee. She was happy to be an attentive wife for her loving husband. Priscilla and Elvis actually moved out of the ranch farmhouse, giving it to Alan Fortis and his wife Jo, so that Priscilla and Elvis could enjoy the closer intimacy of one of the house trailers. So Jerry seems to confirm what Joe Esposito has said. But again, unless Elvis had alterations made to this trailer very quickly after he moved in, I don't think it's true. But I'm going to show you. Now, do I think it's true Alan and his wife lived in the beautiful little cottage house that had been remodeled and looked like something out of Better Homes and Gardens? Absolutely, I believe that. Absolutely believe they lived there. And Gunn says that she's heard that Priscilla say that she could cook. Is that what you're saying, Gunn, that Priscilla could cook? Because she was there, she was the only one to cook? Yeah, I've heard her say that. And we're going to get something like that, actually. Jerry says, Sandy and I had a honeymoon glow too, and we're thrilled to be in our little trailer. All the guys and wives were getting along with each other, and we really did start to feel like a big, happy family. A strange family, but a happy one. However, after a false start, Elvis's dream of a cowboy commune seemed to be working perfectly. So Elvis has put a lot of work into this. This whole idea of Circle G, and Jerry's saying that at least as far as he and Sandy are concerned, this is the apex right here. When they return for Elvis's honeymoon, that everybody is happy and it's a beautiful time to be there. Now here we can see down the hall of this trailer. And Colleen says that she can't imagine a star as big as Elvis choosing to live in a trailer. Oh, and Gunn clarifies that she heard Priscilla say that she can't cook, that she cannot cook. Well, that's probably part of the problem here. And Keith says, how often did the Colonel come by the Circle G ranch without any incidents with the guys? I don't think the Colonel ever comes to the Circle G ranch. I don't think he ever visits. Not that I've ever found. And Gunn says that Graceland sounds more convenient. It is, because there's always somebody on duty ready to make you a peanut butter and banana sandwich. Priscilla Presley says, I loved playing house. I personally washed all Elvis's clothes, along with the towels and sheets, and took pride in ironing his shirts and rolling up his socks the way my mother had taught me. So Priscilla is living the ideal life of a newly married wife, at least her idealized version of it. George Klein, he says Elvis and Priscilla were very much in love. And even as Priscilla got more and more beautiful as she grew from a girl into a woman, we knew Elvis didn't just love her for her looks. The two of them were loving partners who also shared a great friendship. George Klein appears to have thought very highly of Priscilla. And not just for her looks. Now here we see a gold sink. And we've looked at this sink before and in a previous episode, way back. So if you're wondering about that episode, feel free to go back into the archive and check it out. It's waiting for you back there. But if we look at this sink, I don't know if it's plated gold or if it's gold plastic. That's what it would be today, right? If it's ceramic that's painted with 14 karat gold. I don't know that if the fixture is truly gold. I've heard that the fixtures in the Lisa Marie, the plane, were. This definitely looks like it could be gold. But I don't think that Elvis had this in the trailer that he meant for Alan Fortas and his wife to live in. Or any of the other guys. This looks to be a custom Elvis kind of thing. I could be wrong. Maybe Alan had a special fascination with gold as well. And maybe Elvis was, catering to that, but I just don't think so. And Billy seems to be fairly certain that Elvis ordered this trailer, with himself in mind. And I just feel like this sink tells us that. Now, again, I'm assuming this sink was actually there when Elvis bought this trailer. This trailer's been remodeled. It is a long ways from where it started out at the Circle G, wherever it's at. It's gone through a hard life. There are pictures of it when it's not remodeled, and it was a very hard life for this trailer. So is this the way it really was when Elvis got it? Or has this been put in to enhance the Elvisness of the trailer? I don't know. I believe Priscilla was part of the sale of this trailer. It verified that it was the trailer. I don't know if she said anything about the sinks. And Gunn's asking if there's any trailers left today. Well, this one, it was remodeled, I think, around 2018 and auctioned off. So somebody owns it. I don't know what kind of shape it's in, but it was virtually brand new. The pictures that we're seeing of it right now, this was the shape it was in when it was sold in 2018. Now, there are trailers behind Graceland still today. One of them is the office for Graceland, and it's one of the trailers that people lived in. It's not Billy and Joe's. Well, maybe it is Billy and Joe's. I believe Donna Presley has said that the one they lived in, which would have been this one, it's been moved. And of course, we know that because it's off at this auction. But at least one of them has been turned into that office. And I think there's at least one more still left back there. But again, I don't know which ones they are. I feel like it was the Tish Hensley's that was still left, but I don't know. You're saying you meant on Graceland, yeah. But I think there's two left there. One being used as the offices. And here's a bathtub. It's looking pretty gold. Has a really unusual place where the faucets are as well. And again, maybe this isn't how it really was when Elvis owned it. We can see there's something crazy going on with the tub over on the left-hand side. I guarantee it wasn't like that when Elvis owned it. Got some pipes or something sticking out. So we can only guess that this does approximate what it was. But if it did, then again, I'd have to say he didn't mean this for Alan Fortis. And Gunn says, for people to visit trailers? No. No, there are no trailers of any kind for people to visit that I know of. If anyone does know of a trailer that's connected to Elvis, a trailer home, that people can visit, that would be really interesting. I'd like to know that. Priscilla Presley says, I got up early, put on a pot of coffee, and started his breakfast with a pound of bacon and 3 eggs. Proudly presented it to him the moment he woke up. You see, if we were ever stranded somewhere alone, you know I can take care of you, she said to Elvis. So Priscilla wanted to show Elvis that they could be self-sufficient together. And Joe Esposito said when Elvis tired of living in the trailer and moved back into the house. Now that's not something we've heard, right? That he got tired of living in the trailer and that he moved back into the house. And Joe goes on and he says he and Priscilla saddled their horses every morning and rode out back to join us for a cup of coffee. So here's what I think Joe is telling us, is that at some point, this trailer that we're looking at, wherever it was moved back with all those other trailers. And I remember a trailer pad that was off at a diagonal to everybody else. I kind of think that might have been his. And that's where they put this one. Can't swear to that, but they put it back there with the rest of them so they could hook it up to all the utilities. And while Elvis was on this honeymoon, he wanted to be part of this family dynamic that was going on in this little village down by the back gate. So he stays down there. And maybe he'd always intended to stay down there if all this stuff was gold like we see it. And he likes it because it's all brand new. But then maybe he gets to thinking, I'm too close to everybody and I need more privacy because we just got married. And then they move back into the beautiful little house. Or maybe he just likes to move around. I'm not sure. But it appears that at some point he and Alan do switch because Alan's got to live somewhere. So Alan and his wife must have ended up living here in this trailer for a little while. That's all I can guess. Now, I guess that Donna Presley could also tell us if these things were really gold when she lived there. That would be interesting. And Keith says Ginger Alden said she never saw EP eat a peanut butter and banana sandwich. She wasn't there very long, and I don't think he was into him at that point in time. You know, I think he went through fads on what he ate. And the peanut butter and banana sandwich was something that was extremely easy for the guys to get a hold of when they're out on the road. So like when Gene Smith would travel around with him, you know, you'd end up in these hotel rooms and you can't cook anything. But you can buy a loaf of bread and some bananas and a jar of peanut butter. And then you can have peanut butter and banana sandwiches. And Luann says, wow, a gold bathtub. And Luann says she's been hearing about Ginger Alden. And Keith says that he heard she packed up many items that didn't belong to her. Well, she was gifted many, many items, and those items are very specifically Ginger's. I mean, they're meant for Ginger. So I'm not sure what she packed up that they think didn't belong to her, but I have a whole lot of stuff that was hers. I mean, records of a whole lot of stuff that was hers that Elvis gave her, and it's all very definitely given specifically to her. Like, it's got her name on some of it, right? Or it was custom made for her. So she has very, very few items that are generic in any way, or just from like around the house. Not like other people do. She also kept most of her stuff for a really long time. And Gunn says that she was only there for 9 months. Maybe he took a pause for those sandwiches. That's right. She only knew him for a very short period of time. You know, we always have to bear that in mind about Ginger. And she was a very far distance from him in terms of age, in terms of experience. What she was experiencing there at Graceland was completely different than what everybody else was experiencing just because of where she was in life. And Gunn says that she's heard about others taking things from Graceland after he died. Jimmy Velvet had a whole museum full of stuff that was Elvis's and has no provenance. Nobody knows how it got over to Jimmy. Who wouldn't be proud of the item that they received from Elvis? Or that was given to them by a family member of Elvis? Right? So why wouldn't there be provenance with these items? Now, some people would say Jimmy wasn't a professional museum guy and he didn't know. Well, he's got provenance with other stuff. Anybody that's ever bought anything of any collectible value knows provenance is important. So it's weird. Things just moved away from the house, especially things about the size of your pocket. Now here's a bill. Hello, TT. Thanks so much for coming. TT's ASMR. And if you guys have ever wondered or you like ASMR, which is all about sounds, and they're best heard through the headphones, make sure you check out TT. And Colleen says maybe because they don't want people to know that they had the stuff. That's right. Because how did they get it? And a happy Wednesday to you too, TT. Thanks so much for coming. And we're looking at this invoice from the Aladdin for the wedding. It's still kind of small and hard to see, but I can read it here. It says plane charter, $1,741.50. Now, I think some people would look at that and say, Frank Sinatra charged Elvis to use his plane. I guess that could be it. Or maybe that's all the people that came over on the other plane. And maybe the Aladdin paid for some group discount thing, however many people they needed to put onto that plane. I mean, Red West ended up buying a ticket on that plane on the way back, so I don't know if it was completely reserved just for Elvis's people, but it could be that Frank Sinatra made $1,700 that day, minus his expenses. It's not cheap to run a Learjet, obviously. There's cost involved, but that's about $17,000 today. Limousine service. I'm sure that's from the airport to the hotel. Elvis ended up paying $160 for that. Well, he didn't pay it. It went to the William Morris Agency. You can see at the top. To attention of Lou Goldberg. So it looks like maybe the Colonel got the William Morris Agency to pay for this stuff. And there was a copy that went to Colonel Thomas Parker at the MGM Studios. So that would be the Colonel's proof from William Morris that, hey, look at this nice, wonderful thing that we did for our client Elvis that you had asked us to do. I'm just guessing here. But somehow William Morris is involved in this, and it looks like they're the people paying because they're receiving the statement. And service to and from airport, $86.25. And I don't know what that means because they also paid for limousine service. Maybe it's $86.25, and if you want a limousine, it's another $160. And musicians, $138.60. That was that trio of musicians who played. They didn't come for free. And for gloves, $19.28. Now, I don't know who was wearing gloves. I don't remember seeing any gloves. But Elvis got charged $20, which is like $200 today for these gloves. Whoever wore them. And Judge Zinoff, food, lodging, transportation services, and outside expenses, $408.17. So that Supreme Court justice that we thought was such a nice guy, and he talked to Elvis and Priscilla beforehand, and made sure this is really what they wanted to do and get married, and he said Priscilla was just petrified and her mouth was hanging open. They were paying him the equivalent today of $4,000 to perform that ceremony. What do you think about that? Did you have any idea that that's what was happening when we saw those pictures? That man was making what today would be $4,000. It was $400 back then, but it had a lot of buying power. And the wedding party. Room, food, beverage, 2 suites, 21 rooms. Rooms that these people used for a few hours, and then they left. They weren't even there overnight. I mean, I guess you do have to clean them all again. I'm not sure how much beverages they used, but it's $1,860.57, or, roughly $18,000 today. Floral arrangements, $500. That's the equivalent of $5,000 in flowers today. If you called and had a $5,000 set of flowers put up at your wedding, I don't know how many flowers that would be, but I feel like it would be significant. Like you would look at that and say, wow, this is impressive. Now, in the pictures we saw, I don't remember thinking anything about the flowers, to tell you the truth. Breakfast buffet. I think that's the buffet that all the people got to eat from. That's in the banquet hall. $2,500. So that's like $25,000 today. Back then, $2,500. But today, $25,000. I feel like you could feed 100 people for $25,000 pretty well. I feel like you could. Even today, with the very high prices on food. And the wedding cake was $200, or the equivalent of $2,000 today. Now, I think wedding cakes are roughly $500 to $800. I mean, even today. And so a $2,000 wedding cake, not a rich person, got a really big cake. It was pretty impressive. So I guess maybe there was artistry and skill, but that smiling baker, Luann, the one that you didn't like in that picture, well, now you know why he was smiling. And you know why he was there. When you pay the equivalent of $2,000 today for a cake, the guy who makes it comes with it, and he makes sure everything's okay. And again, I don't think Elvis paid this. I think the William Morris agency paid this. And it sure was nice of them if they did. And the champagne, the rooms, the suites, the wedding reception. Now remember, this champagne, this is that liquor that didn't get drank, that Marty was very concerned that he take back to Palm Springs. And so I think that's what the champagne represents. But it's also got room, suites, wedding reception. I guess that's where they put the champagne. And then whatever didn't get drank, Marty went around and collected. But $1,627, or about $16,000 today in liquor. I don't know how many bottles of champagne, of California champagne, it's not real champagne, but of California champagne that you could buy today for $16,000. I bet it's a lot. And fruit baskets. Looks like he paid $80 to suites and rooms. Or about $800 for apples and bananas and whatever other fruit they provided in there. Maybe some strawberries. And Colleen says that's ridiculous. Which one, Colleen? And Colleen says there was probably a 50% markup on everything when it was for Elvis. Well, no wonder Milton Prell was so happy to have this wedding. And he didn't even have to fight the colonel about how much it cost, because they built it off to William Morris. That's what I think's happened here. And then, well, no, Freddie Bienstock was from Hill and Range. I don't know who was there to represent William Morris. I hope he had it, maybe Lee Goldberg himself, or Lou Goldberg, but I hope he had a good time. And Luann says, poor Elvis spending everything on others from those show schedules. Yep. And Colleen saying the guy that married them charging $4,000. Well, that's in today's money. He really only charged $400. But if it was today, he'd charge you $4,000. Seems like a lot. Seems like he would have been pretty happy just to show up and be at Elvis's wedding. I mean, I feel like I would have paid Elvis to marry him, right? Like, oh, are you sure you want me? Can I pay you $100? Is that enough? Well, we got another receipt. Although this one's all crossed out. So maybe, I don't know if Elvis paid this or what, or that just indicates it was paid. And it says, Mr. Elvis Presley, May 15th, 1967, on approval. So I think it's saying that Mr. Elvis Presley approved this like over the phone or something. Maybe Vernon did. And it says retail over top of the dollars. And then the dollars for each item are actually crossed out. So maybe what it's indicating is, as we saw on another receipt, Elvis gets a discount from Harry Levitch because they like to do business together. And so maybe this is what it would have cost. And there's going to end up being another receipt that has the real dollars on it. And maybe he gets a monthly discount or something on everything, and they lump it all together for one payment. I have no idea. But the first thing says can of peanuts. At least that's what I think it says. I can't really read it. It can't be can of peanuts, but it's $39.95. So if you can read it, let me know. I mean, I can't even get a handle on it in any way. But the next one I think says something about a Gestalt oval. This is when we need Linda a jewel here, because she says that she loves jewelry and she's able to read these better than I can. But some kind of oval something, and it was $50. And then there's an emerald diamond something. It's emerald something something diamond, and it was $18.50. It must have been pretty small. And then a locket charm for $49.50, and then another something with emerald eyes. A cat, something with emerald eyes. 190, a cat pen, emerald genius eyes, $195, which would have been close to $2,000. So it must have been a pretty nice pen. And Gunn says that it seems like everyone was using Elvis for his money. I think everybody was very comfortable with Elvis's money. They were as comfortable as if it was in their own wallet in many cases. And Colleen says that she thinks it would have been an honor to marry Elvis, which I think is her also saying that no need to charge. You know, maybe some cab fare, but let's come on, $4,000 worth. It does seem like a lot. He was a Supreme Court justice, though. So, on the other hand, though, I think he's already got a pretty good salary. And Luann says, Mary, it hurts me in the chest that Elvis was tiring himself down and giving his cash to others, and they had jobs themselves. I understand exactly what you're saying, Luann. And Colleen says maybe it's pearls, not peanuts. Yeah, maybe it is pearls. I can never read when this guy writes pearls. A chain of pearls, or it can't be a can of pearls, but it was $40. And Luann says Elvis was very kind, but sometimes had to set on ideas for his income, right? Others had ideas for his income. That's true. A lot of people knew how to spend Elvis's money. And Charlie Hodge says, Elvis loved to take on a challenging project. He loved to spend money, and he loved to have the people he loved around him. The ranch gave him a chance to have all that at once, and as things settled down a bit, there were some good times. Elvis was active and having fun, and Priscilla, Sandy, and I, along with Alan, Marty, Red, Larry Geller, Mike Keaton, Richard Davis, Joe and Joni Esposito, and Billy and Joe Smith got into the spirit too, spending a lot of time on horseback. Now, I've got to assume that when Charlie is making this statement, he's talking about Circle G as like one long memory for him. And there was a time when Larry Geller was there, but he's not there now. And there was a time when Red was there, but I don't think Red's back yet. I think Red comes back before the Circle G is over, like a month from now, but he's not there right at the moment. He's mad. And here we hear that name Mike Keaton again, the one that if you're following the other series I'm doing about the spiritual books, and we looked at a very special Bible today with the tree of life in it and a branch for all of Elvis's guys, Mike Keaton's name's on it. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. And when we come back, we're going to hear more about the fun that they had on Circle G during this honeymoon as it stretches out into about a month. And then Elvis is eventually going to leave to make another movie. This one with Nancy Sinatra. And that's all coming up in the next episodes of Signed, Sealed, or Remembered. And until I see you all again, I'm going to leave you with a song. And this one is about Donna Presley's memories of Circle G. And it's called He Gave Us Everything. And you all keep on taking care of business.
Oh, 17, snow on the ground, Circle G, love all around. He bought that ranch, opened the gate, said come on in, let's celebrate. Tractor pulling through the snow, laughter rising, spirits glow. Both behind, wives and men, family fun again and again. He wasn't just a star in lights, he was the warmth in winter nights. Kindness wrapped in velvet flame, a heart that never played the fame. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring. He gave us love, he gave us wings. Circle G, where the angels sing. He gave us everything. Riding horses, legs so still, bridge and cross on the quiet hill. Barbecue smoke, stories told, moments more precious than gold. He'd ask me who I'm dating now, what I dream, what I'd allow. He cared like kin, not just a name. He lived for love, not for acclaim. He wasn't just a voice on stage, he was the soul behind the page. A man who'd sing to heal your day and laugh at midnight, lose away. He gave us joy, he gave us grace. us everything. A shadow in the night, famous face, but a heart so bright. Couldn't walk the street like you and me, so we built a world where we were free. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight green. He gave us love, he gave us way. Gave us everything. Yes, he gave us everything.